Oh man. Man, I am so glad to have you back on. You know why? Because in this climate where everybody's worried about everybody else, it's so good to have someone that only thinks of volleyball. This man has a one-track mind. I mean, we think of other things, but I like that you're all about that life. So it's really good to have you back on. Guys, this is episode 253, believe it or not. That's wild. Got my guy Bryan McDermand coming up. The episode starts right now. Or should I say, right now. Oh man, sorry about that. That was loud. Come check out. There goes again. Hey guys, episode 253. Jason DeBeers, Bryan McDermand. What's good, my man?
What's going on? It's
Uh,
busy times. Fall session's begun. Feel bad for the people that like to be outside in Chicago, but starting to get prepared for our cold weather season. And so far, so good. We're juniors program's going well. Adults are starting to make their plans for October and beyond, and hoping to have some other things in the works down the road. But we'll talk about that when the time comes. So, how you doing, man?
I'm good. I'm good. I actually I took a year off from coaching. I wanted to travel around. Me and my wife. I had what you would call like a bad year last year. Even though if you were at the Motherlode, you would never know because that place is magical and it always turns my frown upside down. But I had this resolution to one, not do anything for free because people don't appreciate things you do when you do things for free, and two, go where I'm wanted. If someone wants me somewhere, just go. Right. So Honolulu wanted me, I went. Seaside, I got to MC for only like the second time in my life. But you know what happens when you put me on the stage and give me a microphone, right? You know what happened next, right? It was great. Motherload. So Hermosa Beach, I got to call court too. So I'm like, wow, there are people that want me somewhere, so I'm going to go where I'm wanted. So that was, we have better halves. Our wives are so much smarter than we are, and that's saying a lot because I think you're really bright, you know, and I can't picture you being with someone as dumb. That would be cruel and unusual punishment to a man with an intellect like yourself. So, short
Definitely outkicked my coverage a little bit with her.
no,
So.
short summary. Took a year off from coaching. Had fun doing the things I think I'm good at. No, I did coach once, Manhattan Beach Open. I coached one of my girls, Natalie, from Endless Summer, and she just graduated UCLA and her mom was like, Manhattan Beach is important, so they right. But Bryan, right? That's going where we're wanted, right? When you have good players that have other choices and choose you, you got to pick up the phone and say yes. You would know something about that. My question to you, before we get started on this really really fun stuff, your volleyball thing at Progressing Beach, do you do a seasonal thing? And I might have asked this before. Do you do a seasonal thing, or is it like an all year round thing? Like Aaron Wexler, who's in the chat right now, had West Coast Volleyball has an all year round thing. I was with in the summer. That was an all year round thing. So floor is yours.
Yeah, I mean, we do 4 10-week sessions with 3 1-month pauses, right? So we just finished a little break in August where, kids were trying out for the high school teams, if they weren't going to play high school, but they played first in the summer and get kind of acclimated to their school schedule and whatnot. We had some that were doing privates in that break, the ones that are trying to play in college. Um, so yeah, our fall session started last Monday, so we're 2 weeks in. And then we're going to go until the second week of November. And this is the only one that we don't take a pause between. So most of our kids right now are kids that either did not make their high school team. Some of them are playing club and wanted a program that was more about their development versus, sometimes on your high school team, if, understandably, the coach is trying to get the team ready to win games, your individual growth isn't necessarily the priority. Um, so yeah, we focus on those kids, and then in the spring or the winter, we have kids that played their high school season. Some are looking to play beach in college. Some, one of our things, and the reason I shifted to beach was it was the one version of the sport that allowed me to give everyone that ones team treatment, right? We have 4 groups max every session. They're working with the same coaches. They're getting the same, repetitions. They're the same knowledge. So they really have ownership of their own development. The kids that work really hard and put the extra time in typically get where they want to go. Um, we take a pause at the end of January. So February is kind of time for my hardcore kids. They're usually renting the courts or setting up privates. And then March to mid-May, we have our spring session. We take a break from mid-May to second week of June. We do our summer. Summer goes to the first week of August, take a 1 month pause, and we do it all over again. So it's year round. We have kids that play all 4 sessions, and that's great. We have kids that play other sports. So right now, like I said, most of our kids are playing for their high school that play for us, but we have kids that are playing for us now that may play basketball in the winter. We have kids that have done bowling, golf. We have kids in musicals. We have kids that play instruments. So I love indoor, but beach was the one version of the sport where I can look at a kid and say, where does volleyball fall in your list of priorities? Is it something that this is you eat, sleep, breathe it? Is it something that is secondary to other things? And we can provide a positive experience and high level development within those boundaries.
Yeah, and I think that's very interesting in a sense. You mentioned at the end priorities, and Aaron, we're definitely going to get some of your questions before he and I might have a disagreement about like consequence drills versus positive reinforcement or whatever. But that's going to be one of our core discussions. Um, because I like to come prepared when he comes on. I have too much respect for the man to just talk, like I'm doing now, for example. Um,
All good, brother.
um, I really like that you cited that,
Forgive me, that was on me.
yeah, that it's not on the high list of some kids' priorities, right? Like, and some coaches, if it's not your first priority, you're not a serious person. But there are some people like it's not a one size fits all, Brian, right? Like, there are some people who are really, really talented than some girls on their best day, and they don't care. There are kids that have to do Shrek the musical in high school, and that means something to that person more than volleyball does. So it's very, very interesting, and I'm hoping you have something to say because I'm kind of throwing in the importance
Yeah.
of how deep is your love and how coaches address that.
Yeah, one of the things that I don't think we talk enough about is I'm part of a lot of parent and coach forums, and sometimes I feel we're very one track mind on what it is to be a competitive athlete, right? Um, it saddens me when I think sometimes if kids don't play volleyball 51 weeks a year with the same passion, that we look at them as like they're not dedicated, they don't want it. And my girlfriend's a professional artist and she's very good at art. And I'm sure if I put the same time and effort into art that I did into volleyball for 20 years, that I could get good at it. But I don't have a fire for that, right? I think about my childhood, and I was very math centric from the age of 5 on. I always tested in the 99th percentile. My whole childhood, everyone told me I was going to do something with math. I was validated by that, and I bought into it. And then I got to my freshman year of college, and for the first time, I couldn't um, I couldn't just compute the numbers and have the answers, and math became work. And that's when I realized there's a difference between having a talent for something and a passion for it, right? Meanwhile, volleyball was my least talented sport. Being 5'5" with a size 12 shoe going into high school. Luckily, I grew into those feet, but the work didn't feel like work. I don't like as even as an adult, Friday nights I want to be at open gym playing versus out with my friends and whatnot, right? So I think our system sometimes is very much about what a kid can do versus what they want to do. I think sometimes we mislabel kids as either not competitive or they don't have a love for the sport. And truth be told, it's they love the sport and they like to play it. And don't get me wrong, if a kid says they want to play in college but their work ethic doesn't reflect it, I need to hold them accountable on that, and I have those conversations. um, but I do think that it's a one size fits one thing. Like I've never met two kids that are identical. It's something I think is great about the human spirit. Is everyone's got something unique and they bring something to the table. And we've had over 30 kids go on to play in college from progression. And what I'll tell you is the common thread of all those kids, it was they liked the things outside of our program. I get 4+ hours a week with them, maybe 8 hours a week with them. Who are the kids that like taking film and put the tripod in the sand and then they're breaking it down? Who are the kids that are lifting, they're taking care of their bodies, they're taking care of their sleeps, right? I don't, I'm not saying that you can't crack the whip on kids and get a little bit more out of them for a while. But what I've found is at some point there's going to be a shelf life on it. When I coached Division One, we had a player that 6'2" with the 6'3" wingspan, was one of three players in the country as a freshman, had a 30 kill, 20 dig game. You could tell they were validated by the sport by their whole life. But being honest, they just didn't have that motor for it. You could tell this is a kid that had always been given validation because of how good they were. And I see kids that are really tall that, they play the sport because they're tall and they've always been put on, but they don't, they're not, they don't have that drive. They don't have that, we don't have that dog in them. And meanwhile, I got some kids that, they come to us and they don't have a lot of natural ability, but man, if you give them the right environment, they're going to ask questions. They're going to stay for extra reps. Those are the kids. I spoke to a bunch of parents at a facility last Saturday, and it was 9 a.m. Actually, sorry, Sunday. It was 9 a.m. It was at a park district, and there's this one kid that couldn't have been more than 15, 16, running the hill by himself. No one else there, no parent, nothing. That's the kid that's going to make it.
Let's
You know
go.
what I mean? Because no one's watching, and that's what they like to do. And so I believe my role as an 11 to 18-year-old coach is to connect with my athletes as people, to give them ownership of why they play volleyball, to allow them to create their own goals, to give them a path on how to accomplish that, and then hold them accountable based on their goals, right? But at the end of the day, it's on them. If I got a kid that says they want to do certain things, but their actions don't match it, I will let them know that I recognize that, but I'm not going to force them into it. Because I just think at some point it's better for them to learn the hard way. As someone that got cut twice in high school in a sport, even though my dad told me I needed to work harder in basketball, um, I think there was nothing he was going to be able to say to me that was going to have the impact that not making that team had on me. Because from that point on with volleyball, I didn't know where I was going to go with it, but I told myself I'm never going to look back and wonder what if. I'm never going to if I want this, I'm going to give my best effort. And it was that sting that I felt all those years ago, which was absolutely a low point in my life. And I'm grateful that my dad didn't protect me from it because I think it was one of the most valuable lessons of my life.
That is a valuable lesson in a sense that um, sometimes you're playing a sport, right? You really want to become a baseball player until you see your first 90-mile-an-hour fastball. You're like, hey, whoa, okay, I'm finishing the game, but for sure, I'm not going to be doing this, right? So, and I really like what you said about you'd rather regret doing something than regret not doing something, right? Because regret not doing something involves trying to turn back time and do that, and of course, we cannot do that. We cannot turn back time, but you can say, hey, I didn't want to do it, but at least I'm older, 40 years later, hey, I freaking did it and it worked. Or I freaking did it and it didn't. Right. And one of my ex-employers told me that, and that's what turned around my entire life. I'm like, I want to do this. I want to do that. And he's just like, he just got tired of hearing me talk and just said, look, sit down. And he's like, if you want to do it, just do it. I'll back you either way. Very good employer. And he said, I'd rather have you regret doing something than not. And he was like, except having kids. He's like, some of you crazy people should should never have kids, right? Don't. I mean, that's something where like the kid's born, you can't turn back time on that either. But um, I wanted to explore what you were talking about, decisions to make, their dedication, and holding them to their dedication. Do you do you find this, and this almost sounds like a rhetorical question, do you find this easier in beach volleyball than indoor? Because indoor, if you like, we generally accept that girls volleyball is driven by teamwork and camaraderie, where like guys are more driven by leadership, right? We coach a boys team, you could kick him in the butt, he looks for a leader to follow, he's good, right? Women, we're more careful because we know vilifying or saying something to a woman that might make the rest of the team alienate her causes these clicks, like in these mini clicks, and we as coaches always think we see it, but we really don't, man. We're always looking the wrong way when when it falls off the cliff or when someone gets fired, right? So my question to you, is, do you find it easier for the beach than indoor? Because for indoor, for girls not as dedicated and she's balancing her time with other things, and some of the girls who are all in, right? It's easy to cause resentment. Like, like I can't, I'm like all in and this girl's doing freaking The Sound of Music. Sorry, your volume. I'm going to check your
Can you
volume.
get me?
Gotcha.
Am I good?
Yep.
Sorry. Um, you know, i- the tough part about indoor is, you got these teammates, right? And at the same time, like if your friend in your position plays better or worse than you, it literally affects your opportunity, your experience, right? Like when I coached Division 1, we had 16 really talented players, like 16 of 1% girls on that team,
Right.
right? And 10 of them were sitting on the bench at all times. And many of these girls, as high school kids, hadn't experienced that. And, you know, no one goes to play with the idea that they're not going to start, and you need everyone. Some of these kids got there because they had a coach that did crack the whip on them. Some had some that were more coddling, and now you need everyone to buy into one philosophy, um, and sacrifice some of their personal individual goals to be successful. That's not easy to do. It was always really when I coached indoor, one of my things that I taught to my parents is like, I can't promise playing time equally. That's just, from 14 and under, I was more balanced with that. But from 15 on, like my whole thing to parents is like, I need to teach your kids how to work to earn their spot, because they need to be able to do that when they go to their high school, and they need to be able to certainly do that if they want to go play in college. But my commitment to them was at practice, and I stood to this, and you had to make them buy in. I gave everyone the same opportunity with reps. I gave everyone the same attention, right? Like my commitment to the parents and players was, whether you're number 1 or you're number 12, everyone gets fed at practice, because that's where the development is, and you're paying for that experience, right? I do struggle with the paradox of like, you're paying as individuals to play travel ball, but you're all getting very different experiences. And for some parents, they're spending thousands of dollars, and then their kid is not getting that exposure. They're not getting that court time. Yeah, that's a tricky thing to navigate. With sand, we started our season, like I said, for the fall 2 weeks ago. I had 11 kids in my first practice. I said, girls, I'm not here to rank you 1 through 11. We're here to learn together. We're here to push each other. And at the end of the day, 11 of us collectively, do we feel like we got better after 2 hours? And when we compete, and every practice we play games, I don't keep score, but it's game like scenarios, and we play a lot. Um, Someone's going to be under 500. It's the nature of competition. Our gold medalists, last 4 gold medalists for indoor and beach, um, for um, the men's, the women's, all lost 42 to 45, or actually 45 to 48% of their points when they were number 1 on the planet, right? So it's part of the game. And if you are under 500, I don't want you. Other people are not the bar; they're the measuring stick. So what do they teach you, right? What was the thing that they were doing that maybe you haven't seen as much? So we need to learn how to counter that. What was the skill that was breaking down on our side of the net? And we need to be ready. Like, all I want kids to do is look at. I'm backwards. I think games are a great way to prepare for practices versus vice versa. And I think with sand, it's a lot easier for me to really, again, without having that playing time drama, and truly everyone's experience, my top kid and my lowest level kid, there is no difference in their 2 hours in regards to the opportunities on the court, the feedback they get. I think sand and twos and even fours for younger kids allows for that in a way that you cannot avoid when you coach indoor.
So in other words, like the no bench on the beach motto of beach volleyball trumps like any resentment that an indoor player might have that someone who doesn't come to practice as many times but gets to start, right? Like
From
it's really kind of like the common denominator eliminator, right?
For 11 to 18 you, because
Oh,
one of the
gotcha.
things that,
Yeah.
because think about for college,
Hmm.
now for college, it's, that's something that I think we don't talk about a lot, but again, we've had a lot of girls go on to play in college. I think about one season we had 2 girls at the same school, right? Spring break happens. One of the girls is on the travel pairs. The other girl is one of the reserves. The reserve girl actually was sent home for spring break. So she was actually training with us mid-season,
Hmm.
because from budget perspective, I'm assuming that program, which was a little smaller, Um, the travel kids were continuing right with their season, but they 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 didn't have the funding to send like not everyone goes to the travel events. There's bigger programs. I don't think that happens as much, but I believe that's the case for some of the smaller colleges. So it is college is just as difficult for sand. Like, okay, you have up to 19 kids now on your roster, and you have a very different experience sometimes with your kids that are on the travel pairs, the competitive pairs, and the ones that are not. So, don't get me wrong, there are aspects of the beach where that can happen. But given our program is very developmental focused, we do a lot of our games in house. I imagine at some point as we grow, like this last April was the first time we went down to Hayden Beach and did a club versus club thing, but we didn't have more demand than supply. As I get to a point where I get more kids that might want to compete, and now I've only got, okay, I need three pairs, but I've got five that want to compete. But I don't have, I'll probably look for a sub, from another organization to field two groups at that point. But that is something that we have to navigate. So I think one of the biggest challenges, and this is indoor beach, is we've made playing time kind of the currency that people want versus the development, right? And so that does become a challenge where when people value the playing time, it's easy for them to look over if someone's getting more of it and saying like, am I comfortable with this?
What's the
And
distinction between currency and development? Um,
well, you're
I'm
saying playing time and development?
You said currency and
Well,
development.
I said playing time is what parents
Oh, got
value.
you. All
Is the
right.
currency is what I was saying.
No, I got
And
you.
what I'm saying is like when I coached club, I had some of the best relationships with my kids that played the least at tournaments because those kids were at a level where respectfully they were usually not playing much on their other teams. And unfortunately their other coaches sometimes just kind of put them to the side, right? Like we had 10 kids on a team I coached and I would set and play right back and front so that all 10 kids could be playing at once,
Hmm.
right? And I'd watch two other teams in the club scrimmage against each other and you'd have 4+ kids on each sideline just sitting there watching their teammates play because they're getting ready for a tournament, right? So once I had kids that weren't playing, but they were in an environment where at practice they were treated no differently, they stopped worrying so much about how much they were playing. And I always, try to get my kids at least, 20% of the tournament. Like I wanted to get them in, and I didn't want to just put them in because I got to get them in, right? And I felt that I got a better result. It was cool because even if they weren't necessarily catching the starters, like their parents can recognize tournament to tournament that they were still growing, right? And so, that's where I think deep down when you give families proper understanding of what's important and what's not, and a lot of them are reading these articles that are all about exposure and travel events and recruiting showcases. We don't talk about the development. We don't talk about the fact that 94% of kids that make their high school team will not play collegiately, right? And with that math, I would argue that 90% of 18 and under athletes, all they should be focused on is their development. Like, because if you go travel and you're not in that top six or roughly 10%, let's say, if you're on the cusp, right? You need to catch your peers so that when you do travel, what you're showcasing is that you're actually at a level that they're interested in recruiting. And I think a lot, I have parents that come to me whose kids were not necessarily the genetic outliers, who had negative experiences in other programs, who are thriving in our system. They're getting better, they're building more confidence. But I'm still fighting. They're reading articles, and because they're well researched, they're like, but the articles make me feel like if we're not traveling and we're not getting exposure, that I'm failing my kid, that they're falling behind. And with the internet, I just think that's outdated. Don't get me wrong. If you have a relationship with a coach and you've built it online, they see your film, they're speaking to you personally. There is value to go in person and be at a tournament that they're at and see how they interact in between points. Like, but the idea that so many kids are going to travel tournaments, they've not been taught to actually build the relationships with coaches before that. Respectfully, they're not at a level where they're even competitive in their own region. Like so many of these parents are spending 5 to 10 grand a year in our region on travel, where that money would be so much more valuable for what their goals are if it was actually, to training and coaching that would actually get their skill set up to where it needs to be.
Yeah, I totally agree with that in a sense that you, I mean, it's like you said, it's a business. You're trying to get bang for your buck. I think I also mentioned on a previous podcast, I took a tip from, for indoor coaches out there, I took a tip from Duncan Avery, he's the program director for Evolution, where he had this official policy where everyone gets to play at least one set. And I really like that. And again, this is just for indoor. I really like that because it gives a kid a hook and it gives a kid a taste. And also, it sets up a true meritocracy because if he wants something more than that one set, and he's got to earn that, right? And like,
Have we
and,
talked
and,
about
and it
triple
works for
ball
the
here?
and it works for the parents too, who are like, okay, what's that? What's that?
Have we talked about triple ball here?
Triple ball.
Yeah. So in Canada, 15 and under, they
Mm-hmm.
they play triple ball, right?
Okay.
So it's I serve, my
Mm-hmm.
team gets a free ball,
Uh
the
huh.
other team gets a free ball. All 3 points count.
I like it.
Then the other team serves,
Mm-hmm.
then they get a free ball, then we get a free ball. Then
Right.
we rotate. Every kid wrote and kids get equal playing time.
Right.
Every kid learns all the skills, and then it's 16U.
Right.
That's when we start specializing in Canada. So that's Canada's system.
Right.
We're about income.
Mm-hmm.
Our neighbors up north are about outcome, right?
Right.
And I just look at what they're doing, and I ask myself, is there any good reason? Let's take. I know volleyball, youth sports is a business, but let's look at it. This is children's sports. We're trying to build life lessons. We're trying to maximize development. Is there a good reason that we're not, for younger kids, creating environments where we're not immediately giving a different quality of instruction based on physical potential? Like, I have so many kids that come to me that go to tryouts, and they're not being evaluated on their coachability or their skill. It is literally a size thing.
Hmm.
Like, there are some of the clubs, I'm not going to name them, some of the clubs that are nationally renowned, that are very well known in our area, will line up the 13-year-olds by height, and they will take a 6 footer with two left feet and no thumbs and make them on the ones team, and then give them good coaching because of their physical potential. And a kid that's 5'3" with the motor, they're a good leader, they're smart, they're going to get a much lesser opportunity for coaching, even though they're paying the same money as that 6 foot kid. I think that's something that at some point we need to be addressing, because I know we're missing out on some of the dogs that might not have, they might be late bloomers. And sadly, I think a lot of them get destroyed by mentors that don't know what they need, that give negative. I'm not talking about punishment. I'm talking about when you make a mistake, you're getting negatively criticized with no positive feedback. No, this is how you do it right. Um, there's a lot of kids that are dealing with that right now, and it's that we do a lot of triple ball in the sand, but I think for indoor, if I ever went back to it, I would try to
Right.
bring that to the States, because I think that's a version of the sport that everyone gets fed,
Right.
versus what I liked our Canadian guy said when he was telling us about it. He was like, all you learn in the States is who can serve the best, right? Because you get that one kid that'll rip off 15, 20 serves. I mean, if you're on the volleyball moms group, a couple times a year, you're going to see that kid posing next to their 25-0, that 25-0 scoreboard. And kudos to a young kid that can make 25 serves in a row. But what did we really accomplish in that game for the kids? You know what I mean? Like, are there five teammates, if the ball's not coming back over at all? Like, are they getting better from that? Right? Is the team that's in serve receive? Like, I would argue, how can a team that's paying, parents are paying premium for travel ball, how do they get to a point where they can't even pass a ball over once in 25 attempts, right? And it's an elephant in the room that I think we need to address, because the problem is I don't think the people that are making the decision in our sport can see that. What I think they see is the demand they've created. I think they see the balance sheets, and I think that the uncomfortable thing that we have is, I think there are a lot of people making decisions that are comfortable with the inefficiencies, and the kids that are broken from our sport, as long as the demand doesn't change and the profits with it. Does that make sense?
It makes complete sense, and there was a lot to unpack there. So much that I had to get out a pen and start writing it down because I'm old and stupid, and I'm probably going to forget what was said in the beginning of that because all of this information is valuable. I'm going to start from the beginning. You were talking about income versus outcome in Canadians. I was actually the evolution thing was talking in terms of actual tournaments. You get an entire set in a tournament, right? So everyone's coming gets to play in the tournament, which sets up this hook, this worm or this carrot on the stick that makes people want to compete more and compete harder, right? And it makes the conversation with the parents better because the parents know they're paying all this money to travel and they know that their kid's guaranteed to play. And if your parent wants their kid to play more, now it's a better conversation they're going to have with the coach, assuming the club coach gets to talk to the parents, right? Some club coaches don't get to do that, right? And we were talking about those club policies, which leads me to the second point you were trying to make. This whole lining up kids or whatever, height, getting people just that look physical, right? Remember the girl you were talking about with like two left feet and
Yep.
ugly freaking shoes? Or you said no thumbs, right? Is that what you said? Okay.
Yes, two left feet, no thumbs. But I like.
But it comes from the inherent lazy arrogance, not laziness, that a coach is like that girl. She's got skill set, but she's short. I, in my coaching ability, can teach a girl taller than her the same ability, and she'll be just as good as that girl, except bigger, stronger, and faster. Which I can't even demonstrate how historically inaccurate that is, like chronologically inaccurate. These aren't correlation studies. These aren't, I mean, these are historical pattern studies. If you look at every MVP on the indoor scene and every player of the year or people that make first team all tournament team, they're not the mythological beast. They're the girls who are not short but like normal sized height that through good coaching and tech process and technique can take your lunch money. Okay, so right, I'm sure when Kristen and Taryn got together, I'm sure USAV was licking their chops looking at Taryn come out of Creighton that listed at 6'4", right? I'm sure at some point when they were playing USA volleyball, that USA volleyball probably said, hey, to get international points, you have to play with other people that have international points, which I thought was their end around to like have Taryn play with a taller defender and Kristen
Yeah.
has to fend for herself, right?
Do you
You know,
remember when they graduated from LSU? That was a
yes,
huge. I mean, that was an outward. Like the public was talking about like Taryn's got to find someone else, right?
right.
And
A 36-0, by the way. It's
it
not. It's not like
it's
they. It's not like they were 35-1 and lost a game because Kristen was too short. Okay, they were 30.
Kristen
They were
Nuss.
35. They were 36-0.
Yeah, Kristen Nuss, in my opinion, is pound for pound. Like
Yeah.
she understands the game. She understands the if then. She has the mechanics. She has the drive. Like she checks every box,
Right.
right? And don't get me wrong, like you have to check every box at her height to be able to compete at that level.
Right.
She's generational. You don't,
I
let's
agree.
not pull punches. There is a higher ceiling typically for someone if they have we used to do debates on, you know, would you take a 5'10" outside with a 50-inch vertical versus a 6'6" one with an average one? And one of the points that's valid is like it is harder. You play a five setter when your legs start to go, that 5'10" hitter has a lot harder time being able to still be at that peak reach than someone that doesn't have to jump as high to get to that same reach, right? But when it comes to 11 to 18, I just think this is a sport that we know. Like April Ross was 39 when she won her first Olympic gold, right? This
Yeah.
is, we see Dahlhauser, who don't get me wrong, he was doing well in the 20s, but at 45, like mentally, he's probably a better player than he was 20 years ago. The things he knows and the things he's
Well,
seen.
that's volleyball. All right. Yeah.
Indoor, Jordan Larson was 34 when she was the Olympic MVP. We know this is a sport that you do not peak as a kid. Like we're far from the peak if
No.
we're going to
For
continue the sport.
beach, right? No.
Even for indoor, and again, you have your generational talents like the TJ DeFalcos and the people that are just, but for most people, they're still going to get, even those people are going to get better in their 20s and 30s. So the idea that we put such an emphasis on the results and at an age where we know this is foundation years for our kids, I just think it's silly for me to not meet the kids where they're at when they're not playing well. Like that, I know one of the things we're going to talk about is like punishments and whatnot. Like the idea, knowing that I still shank passes and miss serves and hit out of bounds and get blocked, the idea that we don't just focus on helping someone understand how to fix their spacing, their timing, their mechanics, their decision making. Like those are the things that are actually going to help them go back to do it again and actually execute. When I'm missing a serve, it doesn't help me get better at serving is a burpee or a suicide. And it definitely doesn't make me a better server when I'm missing his fear, right? And I just think so many kids. We just had yesterday's practice. We had a girl, honeymoon suite kind of wears off, and it's the fourth practice, and I see a little self frustration when things aren't going well, and I'm trying to give feedback, and it's not hitting, and I group everyone up and I said, how many of us come from coaches elsewhere when we make those mistakes, there are consequences. They're like, boom, like all of a sudden this connection is back, right? And I'm like, okay. And I said, how did that help? And they're like, not really. And I said, do you feel like you're kind of hearing their voices in your head now? Maybe. I said, when you get frustrated with yourself, the one thing you're not doing
Mm.
is analyzing why the mistake happened. Like, I don't want you to think of passes as bad. I want you to think about it hit me in the bicep, so I'm too close. Hit me in the thumbs, I'm too far away. I felt my upper body pull. I didn't balance my feet. You know what I mean? Like, there's always a fix, and it's never were bad. And so I just like, look, I get it for coaches that haven't been properly trained. There's not a mistake you can show me on a video where I can't look at the person that made that mistake and in a very calm and collected way say, this is why it happened, and this is what, if you do it next time, you'll get a different result. And I just think that's what coaching's about. Um, so,
Ho-
so
Hold
that's
on a second. What you trying to say is out of all the girls you talk to, like consequence drills, every single one of them said it didn't help.
I mean, it built fear, but like, did it actually help them have a better understanding of why they make the mistake? So, like, serve receive,
Hmm.
like I'll bring my own personal experience in it. So when I was in high school, we would always do this drill. We'd put a hula hoop in the center spot, and the target would have to have 1 foot in the hula hoop. You put the scoreboard at 5 minutes, and we had to have a certain amount of passes that they can catch. Um, Before the 5 minute mark. And if we didn't hit it, for every one we were short, we had to do like a suicide, right? So what happens at the 2 minute mark when we're not passing great? Are we thinking about our spacing? Are we thinking about holding our angle? Are we thinking about reading the height and the speed of the serve? No, we're thinking we're not passing well, and I'm gonna have to run because this guy. It's like we got focused on everything but the mechanics and the execution because all we're thinking about is we don't want to run in 3 minutes. So like I'm not saying that there
It's
aren't some players that would like. I've had players come to me that are like, I like when someone like yells at me, and then like, okay, but do you like that because that's what other coaches have like reinforced? Like I feel there's sports science that says that like that is not the best way to get someone to understand like how to do something better. Like if you make a mistake as a coach, does doing a suicide make you a better coach?
what's
Or are you going to be better by actually
but what?
understanding like, oh, I shouldn't have made that. I shouldn't have subbed that when I did. I should have subbed when I did.
Uh,
I should have told the setter to work on that, this, that, or the other thing.
Hold on a second. First of all, I don't run into a lot of coaches that make people do suicides or burpees because their technique was bad. You're not going to run into a lot of coaches that make kids do burpees or suicides because they're not facing their angle. We're talking about the ability to get a girl to psychologically move, right? Like, I would never, the only time I've ever made my team hit the back line is if they got ace cleanly. Like, like, there's some kids psychologically where they want to go, but they can't, and the suicide won't help them because
Why do
and
you think they're not going? Like okay, they don't go
hold
for the
on.
ball.
Let me make my point. Then you can criticize it because this is not a monolithic.
Well,
This
no,
is
I'm
not a
I'm it's a
monolithic
genuine
player
question.
argument. There are some people. The suicide creates a psychological jolt. They know they have to go. They're like, let me just make the move. And once they make the move, now as a coach and as a player, whether their technique was bad or whether they couldn't execute a good pass, you at least have a launching point where if they're just letting balls drop, you're not launching from anywhere at all. So that's a type of player, right? And
Why do you think? I'm asking. I'm not
yeah,
pushing back. I'm asking. Why do you think they're
mm-hmm.
not moving for that first ball?
There's a lot of reasons. I just told you, players are not volleyball players are not a monolith. There are some people like their mind saying
What do you
go,
mean by a monolith?
meaning that everyone's not going to react to the punishment drill or whatever the exact same way. Right? We can't. So, I mean, we need to stop doing that. Not everybody. Not
I'm
everybody's
take the
like this.
punish
This
take the
this type
punishment
of
out of it.
person.
I'm in serve receive.
Okay.
I'm your player.
Uh huh.
I'm not moving for the ball. Why do you think I'm not moving for the ball, Jason?
There's three
Like
reasons.
give me some of the reasons.
I mean, I'm not going to limit it to a false dichotomy or trichotomy if that's a word, but here's one. One, you are not that interested, right? Two, your mind's saying go, but your body's saying no, right?
Why is your body saying no?
Why is your body saying no?
Yeah.
There are some things where your mind's like we gotta go, and the body's not moving. The body
Well,
can't. The body.
okay.
The body
Okay.
cannot.
So this is my theory on that. Okay. Sorry for the extra noise. I'm
No,
still
you.
working on the
I
outside.
knew if I went down the list,
Um,
you'd find something where you could
so
present a counter
so
argument.
this is why I find kids don't move. Kids don't move because they don't know for sure that that's their ball or someone else's. It hasn't been clear on who's taking each ball, right?
Right.
We don't move because I think a big reason for serve receive, a lot of kids don't move. So many kids come to my program, and what they've been taught in
Mm-hmm.
serve receive is to watch the server,
Yep.
and no one has taught them to read the height and the speed of the ball off the hand. So a lot of times they don't move because they don't feel confident in their visual read
Right.
before the ball gets too close, right?
Yes.
I have never met a kid, like I agree with you. There are kids that get put into volleyball that don't really want to play. And the beauty also of sand is because I have groups, right? And I don't need to have a certain amount of kids to have a group work as long as I got four or more. If I got a kid that um, really doesn't have a motor for the sport, and my only thing is best effort and respect of peers. So if I have a kid that is genuinely like, I don't care, and they're not giving their best effort, I have the ability to look at them and say, do you want to be here? You know? And they never say no. Well, yeah. I said, well, here's the deal. I don't care about whether you're successful or failed, but like I know I'm not even sure you realize that you're not giving your best effort, but like you're playing at a lack of effort in a manner that's affecting the people around you as well. And I want you to be here and I want to help you, but if you don't want to do this, no one's forcing you to, right?
I mean, but
And I
that's
don't think
again, that's
I
a
don't think
type of a kid, right? We were going through the
well,
list
what I'm going to share you
before.
to, I've never had to kick a kid out for that reason, which is they don't really care, right?
Right.
Most of my kids that don't move either are frozen because of the fear of consequence,
Right.
right? So, like, this is a true story. I had four 12-year-olds, and we're working on serve receive, and we're frozen. And I'm like, girls, there's no consequence. I said, I don't care about where the pass goes. When the ball goes up, you got to go for it. And they're still not moving. So we sit in the sand, and I start asking questions. And this little 12-year-old is like, I swear, like almost verbatim, coach, I hear what you're saying. But the thing is everywhere else I've gone when I make a mistake, I've been yelled at or put on the sideline. And she said this. And the worst part is they don't tell me how to do it right. Right. And so honestly, I would argue that almost every kid I've had that really doesn't move well, once I put them in an environment where they're being validated by going to try to make the play versus the result, some take longer to break than others because some have been in more negative situations, right? And I'm not like, I don't want you to think this is like, I get that some people want to do drills where it's like you make a team goal, and if we don't get that goal, like you do down and backs or whatever. I'm just saying in general, when kids feel their coaches are holding them to a standard that maybe they're not even at yet, right? Or that day they're struggling with, and their coach is there to hold them accountable to be at a level they're just not at, versus I'm going to meet the kid where they're at and try to figure it out. I'll give you another example. I had a girl, rock star, like not even physically. I'm just saying like mentally was always dialed in, engaged, good effort, and we're working on bump setting, and she's not really transitioning, she's swinging her arms, and I'm just trying to get her again. I'm just trying to get her to do. I just want you to try to get under it and lift with the legs, right? And it's just not there. And I'm like, in my head, admittedly, like my knee jerk thing is like, what is going on with her, right? Because like all I'm asking her to do is try, and she's not doing it. And then we get to a water break, and I pull her aside. I'm like, "You all right?" And she's like, "My friend took their own life 2 days ago, and my school is trying to cover it up because they don't want the reputation of one of their kids doing this. And I have mental health issues, and it's messing with me." Like, how many of those kids, I had to ask for her to feel comfortable with sharing that with me, right? And I had to do it in a like, "Are you okay?" Right? So what if I run that kid that day? You know what I mean? What if I just if you're not going to do it, then I'm going to put you on the line, and we're going to do that until you figure it out, until you want to do it.
Who-
Like, my
This is
environment
like two
is
different
there.
conversations. I'm not, but go
So,
ahead.
so what? All right. So what? I guess for like to go to simplify, like I've never met a kid that truly doesn't move, um, because they don't want. If they're showing up and they're playing, a lot of times they don't move because no matter how many times you say no matter how, some kids take longer to figure it out, right? And I've just found that the more I can get them focused on the actual process of what they're trying to accomplish versus the fear of a down and back or a burpee or being on the bench. To me, I don't need to punish because the consequences you're going to lose. Like, I don't need to protect my kids from the bench. If let's say I coach, a club team and I got a kid that doesn't have the same motor as the other kids, I'm not going to punish them, but they are going to play less than the other kids. And if they don't like that, then my job is to explain to them what those other kids are doing differently, how they can catch up to them, and put them in positions at practice to be able to have the opportunity to earn that spot, right? But if a kid's making mistakes, again, coaching children, even competitively coaching children, I don't put my self worth or my value or my brand on the wins losses of my kids. Like, I don't. I am comfortable letting my kids, telling them the right thing, encouraging them to do the right thing. And at the end of the day, if they don't do it, looking at them and saying, "Didn't have the practice you wanted," right? And I can see you shaking your head. So what am
No,
I
I'm shaking
misinterpreting
my
about what you
head
mean?
because sorry, on another note, on my social media, I had someone that posted 8 times on my thing and it keeps popping up and
All
I'm
right.
trying to
So I just
find
want
a
to make
way,
sure
I'm trying to find a way to have a do not disturb thing because
I
like,
got you.
do you understand what I'm saying? When someone's trying to make a point, if they make 8 different posts and give you 8 different links, that's called spamming. And because they know you're not gonna go through each, like if someone posts 8 times, you're not gonna
Dude, what are
address
you?
all 8 posts. So this
We're having
is
a back and forth. What are you looking at over there?
I'm
Shut that guy
trying.
up.
I have all of this stuff on Do Not Disturb except this big fat screen in front of me that says this guy commented. The same person. This guy commented. This guy commented. This guy commented. Look, I am. I think we're both on the same sheet of music in regards to whatever we have in practice is not really designed to win. Winning is the net result of what your goal is and what the obstacles are and what the tactics around
Byproduct.
those goals. We call it GOAT. Okay, GOTE. GOAT. Obstacle, tactics, expectation. Again, for anyone that's performed theater, because I got some theater people who follow me too, right? When you're on stage, your goal is not to make is to put on a great show and make everyone think you're great. That's the expectation. And this is when and I'm bringing theater up because coaches think it's very very easy or no, it's to them it's easy to think goal and expectation are the same thing. They're not. There is a distinction between what your goal is and what you expect, right? Because Brian, it really sounds the same. What's the difference? I'll tell you. Glad you asked. I don't want to hear it. Yes, you do. So, I just want to table my thing by saying that if I made my team do a suicide because a ball dropped between them, I promise you, the next time they get ace, it's because both of them went to it. Okay, so it's not really about the technique as it is as much about saying, hey, like, dude, I don't want to do no more suicides. Let's make this move. And once they make that move, you know what? Now I could do a better job as a coach. And now they're not plugged in on the fear of suicides anymore. They're plugged in like I did everything the coach asked. I still got aced. What's next? Right? So there are benefits to that. I myself, since sometimes other coaches listen to this and make it about us. Like, oh,
Hmm.
you never be in my culture. Why don't you go kick rocks? I don't want to be in your culture. Shut up. So I myself don't do fear drills anymore. I do competitive drills. So if I'm doing a suicide, everyone has to hit like under 25 seconds. So if you're in a competitive environment, when someone hits 22, you know what's going to happen? I'm gonna have kids coming back to me saying, "Can I run that again? I want to beat 22 seconds." So I'm like, so now instead of like kids who don't want to do the drills, like the left and right drill, like 12 digs left and right, like the kids, I got kids saying, "Can I do that next?" And I'm like, okay, it's not a punishment drill anymore, right? So you understand what I'm saying? It's about training your kids for mental toughness to create this environment where whatever goes wrong, or wherever when the beef cooks, and when tensions get high and butt cheeks get tight, do they embrace that environment? Do they become the fire, or do they become consumed by it?
But
So
why can't
so
we go
the
the opposite
value.
direction?
You tell me
Like
why.
why? Like okay, you brought up the example of a ball falling between two people,
I
right?
guarantee you, the very next play after the
But
suicides, they're both going. They're both they're
okay,
they're
but
both
that's
going
okay.
instead of neither.
So I like that. Okay, so they're both going. Is that what we want? I don't
Yes.
want that. No, not that's one
Hell
person's.
yeah. Yes. Hell yeah,
That's
Brian.
one person's ball. If we do our jobs,
Uh huh.
everyone has their part of the court they're responsible for, right? I want to give my two players an understanding. All right, perfect. I had this yesterday. So I had two people playing, and we were initiating the free balls, right?
Yeah.
New partnership.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I put the ball between them, and boom, they both go for it,
Okay.
right? I'm like, okay. So who do I want to take that ball? I want the person in the cross to take that ball because I think they have a better angle at it, right? Like
Yes.
that's our system, right?
Yep.
If no one goes for it, I need to have that same education. I need to have that same I want them to understand one person needs to be going for it, and I want the right person to know that they're going for it, right? So and again, I'm a John Wooden guy. Bobby Knight won national championships too. I'm just saying for me,
So did
like
Bill Parcells.
I want to build a team where everyone knows where they're supposed to be going. And I am willing to go through the trial and error and let that ball fall. Like instead of punishing when no one goes for it, I want to talk to both of them. I want them both thinking, I know when it's my ball, I know it's the other person's ball. And then when they do it right, like I'm positive, like, yes, that's what we're talking about. Right? Why can't we make it growth? And why can't we encourage them to do it because that's what you're supposed to do versus I don't want to run a suicide.
Why?
That's
Because there's a psychological acceptance that it's easier to teach the mistake of both people going for it than neither one going for it. That's just coaching 101. Because
but again, if you know that there's certain if every seam has a specific person that's responsible for it,
right.
why can't we make the focus less about both people going for it and the right person going for it? And why does that have to be a punishment as much as again, this game, there are so many different angles that the ball comes from
Right.
and it travels from. Like there's this game, I love Tiffany, she was Creamer at the time and I can't pronounce her last name and out of respect to her husband, I don't want to mess that up. But former Georgia State coach, I loved, she came in and told our kids,
Yeah.
most of this game's played out of system. It's about bettering the ball. And I can't sit there with the kids and expect them, we have to, that's why for volleyball, we need years of experience, years of if-thens. There are things that now, I don't even think about. When that ball is out of system, it's still I understand the if-thens and how to space myself, who's responsible for what, how to transition. But there are hundreds, I would say, of those scenarios, right?
Right.
And
That's
I,
bizarre. Let's
but
stay with. I want you to finish, but I want to stay with that at the end. What you're just talking about, out of
so
system.
I just think that I don't want my kids to be worried about making the wrong decision. I want them confident on how to make the right decision. And so I'm just being honest. I don't want my kids to just chase the ball randomly, aggressively, because they're trying to avoid the suicide. I want them to go places because I've given them the tools to know exactly who's supposed to get that. And if it's something where there's gray area, okay, serve receive. Maybe I do have a player that's a little more aggressive in their call and reaction. So even though they're not in the cross, they're going to be the one to call the seam, right? Um, you can adjust it to the personnel, but I want to all I want with my coaching is to give kids tools on how to problem solve. And there's always a method for me to do that is constructive to the kid, that is educational to the kid, that does not require a suicide. And being honest, it would be more time efficient to avoid that because I just want to get to the next rep where they get it right.
Yeah, and I think this is a great discussion, and the comment section's lighting up. They're like, "I love this discussion." Someone said it, someone said this is super necessary. Derek Zimmerman, former AVP standout from New Orleans, said, "I think both of you guys are correct about this." Aaron Wexler's like, "Great stuff, guys. Love the convo." I actually got a, all right, I got a super chat. $1.99 contribution, guys. This podcast is super chat supported. Everything, the podcast pays for itself, so
And
chip
don't
in.
give up on me. I got a
Uh,
survey going out. I know I'm the dog,
no,
the boy
I
that
know,
cried wolf.
but
That's just for Aaron.
no, but I
So
like
Aaron,
this conversation
I'm on it.
because we're talking about the conflicting forces of going for it and missing and not going at all, right? And that's where the difference of opinion
So here's
foundationally derives
well
from.
this and I'm not like this is not like
Mm.
I'm I want to understand, right? We don't even have to agree, but I want to understand why is why do you think there's a better result getting the kids to focus on not wanting to run a suicide versus focusing on simply making sure they have an understanding of who's supposed to get what ball?
I don't. That's a very that's a very weird shaped question. Can you say can you say that again? I don't.
So
I
you said
mean,
that there's a cycle like if I have two kids that don't go for the ball
uh huh.
and then we have them run a suicide, that the next time that happens they're both going to crash it, right? And I'm just
10
asking
out of 10
why.
times.
Am I? But
Yeah.
that's
No,
I'm
you're
so
right. 10 out of 10
so
times.
so so why do you think that's more effective than looking at the two kids and saying, if you in that situation, would you argue like in your scenario that like if you had the choice, you know which kid you want to pursue that ball? Like,
No, I think if they both go, you at least have a conversation about who goes for it, right? I mean, if you're talking about beach, we're talking about the hubby wife serve.
well,
Maybe that's something psychological. I mean, well, verbally, that's something you're supposed to say my middle and this and that. But at least
I'll
if
stick with
both
sixes.
go, no, but at least if both go, you can have a conversation about whose ball that was and how you want to communicate that, right? Where you're saying if they don't go at all, it's the same conversation. I get what you're talking about. I understand. I understand the conflicting forces versus not going at all and having that discussion, and going and missing and having discussion,
Like
and
when someone
and
tips
that's
over the middle and indoor, you
what's
don't want all your players crashing. You don't want your middle back that's responsible for the corners. You don't want
right.
them just charging it, right?
I,
You want
well, for me as an indoor coach, if until someone calls for it, they're all crashing. You know what I'm saying? Like if there's a ball going out, there's a distinction between
so
following the ball to
so
the line or watching it curve to them and just hoping you get lucky.
so and
Luck is for losers, my friend.
I would argue that depending on my personnel,
Hmm.
I would want my players to understand who was responsible for each spot. And don't get me wrong, if we're dealing with a ball that's on the line of the boundary of like what's the short ball, what's the deep ball, yes, I'd like both of them to be prepared for that.
Right.
I also I want my players to be protective of their specific area. I want them to know what area that is, and um, so I guess for me, it's just like I don't I don't think for me when that situation happens, it's so much that my concern is about the aggression to the ball
Right.
as much and what I've personal experience. Most of the time, my kids are not moving for the ball. It's because of a mental like hesitance on whether that was what they were supposed to do or not. Sometimes they're not prepared to see like, okay, kid goes over on two for the first time all day and they haven't seen it.
Right.
All right, hold them account. Okay, first time you've seen it, but now we have to be ready for that,
Right.
right? Um, I
I
just
mean,
don't
are you
think.
consider? You also have to consider paralysis through analysis.
Yeah, but I don't think paralysis through analysis when it comes to understanding our areas that we're responsible for, and the
Hmm.
fact like defense to me, like my kids know, like defense is not about guessing where they're going to hit it. It's about knowing your area that you're responsible for protecting. Little things with the tightness of the set, and the hitter's body language, like can help us take certain things off the table. Um, but I do want them to just like you're pursuing the ball relentlessly on parts of the court. Defense is a mindset, right? And I just find that we've had a lot of success getting kids to find that motor by just like an understanding of where they're supposed to be and why they're supposed to be there, and then an enthusiasm to make the play versus a fear of not doing it, right? And again, like I had a kid that was like hesitant on their swing, and then finally launched the ball 20 feet out. And I was like,
And that was
yes,
like the greatest moment of practice.
glorious mistakes, right? Because if you go full speed, I can fix your spacing, timing, mechanics. If you hesitate, I just got to tell you to go for it, right?
Oops,
So
sorry.
like I said, it's not the only way to coach. I'm not
No.
saying but I will say, I just for neutral parties, people that haven't made or they're looking for something because maybe those things haven't worked.
Dude, they're
I,
loving this.
I've
They're loving this
I've
conversation right now, dude.
I have yet to meet it. Again, there are absolutely kids that come through our program
Hmm.
and they got a shelf life on how long they could play volleyball because they don't have the motor, right?
Right.
I've never met kids that really loved it. Like I've had kids that are hesitant until they had a very, it's not paralysis by analysis, but just an understanding of like if the ball goes here, that's mine. It's not theirs, right? And I think sometimes, especially for those balls that like go in between two people, like I want to make there. It's not that it happened. It has to be okay because it happened. And what's the lesson from that play? I need the right person to know that that's their ball. And I can let the other person know to make sure you're ready to go for it if it creeps to your area, right? Um, but I want my kids after mistakes curious about why it happened versus, just they're not even thinking about who should have gotten it because they're just thinking I got to run a suicide.
Right. And I hate to go back to theater on this. Sorry, I'm just making a note here. 10111. Um, I hate to go back to theater, but there's two kinds of theater. Not the only ones, but I'm going to give you an example, right? Meisner or Stanislavski, right? If you get up and move across the room, you need a reason to, right? That's part of goal. What's my goal? What are my obstacles? What are my tactics to get around that? What do I expect, right? And there's another technique called Michael Chekhov technique, not Anton. Anton's a playwright. Michael's an acting teacher. And his technique is go move across the room, come back. Didn't feel anything? Do it again, right? How do you feel now? Feel something? All right, cool. So there's one process and technique that just allows you to just go through the progression and discover your why as you go. And a lot of people don't teach that because one, they're not really they're not really good teachers. There's not enough good teachers that can diagnose that process. Like you're a real coach. Like if you're just running like just like a warm-up thing or whatever, and you're not gonna tell them how, right? You can diagnose right away like your lens is wide enough where you're like, all right, this girl's doing that, but I'm going to let her just play through it. And we can talk about that later, right? And that's just one way to learn it, right? And then there's some coaches that are like, stop, stop, stop. Did you see this girl? Right? And we believe the truth's in the middle where a guy like me always thinks which side of the middle, and I'm more of a Michael Chekhov technique guy, right? So, and it's weird because it sounds like an overwhelming contradiction because I'm making an argument for punishment and consequence drills. I'm making an argument for it because I don't think that it should not exist at all. I'm just saying that coaches that go buck wild as soon as someone does it, back line, I'm like, geez, this is like a 2 hour practice, and now you're taking water breaks because people have to recover from physical drills, right? And again, I personally and professionally as a coach, I don't have consequence to drill anymore because I give them a goal and now they want to do the drill. I'm like, no, we got to practice volleyball, you know? So I was just making an argument because I don't think that it should not exist at all. It holds some value as your question, what? I've already answered that question. As your question of how much does it hold value? Probably not a lot, but some, right? And it does prepare them for Division One. For the girls that want to play D1, where the coach doesn't care if you had a bad day at work or if your boyfriend dumped you, and if fans are paying tickets to watch you, they want to see you perform, right? So that's a real thing too. Again, just like theater, right? Like if I got to do 50 shows, nobody cares if I lost my voice. Nobody cares if my girlfriend found out I voted Republican or Democrat. They're paying money to see you. You know you have to perform, and there's certain things that toughen your skin up and as well as mentally prepare you to be the best performer that you can and sustain that performance. That's all I wanted to say about that.
Do you
But
think any and I'm loading this, I could be wrong on this. Like when AVP players train, right?
uh, yeah,
When they're not when the ball goes between them, do they run? Do they? No?
at
Like
that level,
yeah.
no, because it doesn't. It's not something that is a residual thing that needs to be dealt with. Like I watch them every
That's
morning. USA,
I
USA,
watch middle serves
yeah,
burn a team 3 or 4 times in a row. I've seen it,
yeah,
even at
USA.
the AVP level.
Well, USA practice. If you're doing that, they're just putting two more people in. They're not. There's no punishment drill. There's so many of them. Like I
Sure.
literally I go to Starbucks in the morning, and before I start podcasting and coaching privately, they're at the pier in front of the Good Stuff restaurant. The girls go, I think 8 to 10, and the guys go 10 to 12. Scott Davenport is the guy who's running the. I think April Ross is actually the USA coach, but I never see April Ross out there. I see Davenport and I see Akers,
Mhm.
and they don't do that as much as they just want to get the next rep in because the
Yeah.
girl at that level already has a self correction,
So
right?
the
You
punishment so the
we went
punishment at
from
the
but come on, man, we're gonna use that after we were just
well
talking about
well
12,
my
11s and 12 year olds,
so
right?
my point is at the highest level, like what's the punishment? It's you're out of the play, right?
Yeah,
Like to me, like that's I don't want kids to think that I'm punishing them,
right.
right? I want
Uh-huh.
them to understand that like I want you to be successful
Right,
and I know what you need to do and I'm going to give you constructive feedback on how to do it.
right,
And if you don't do it and the other kid does, they're going to get the opportunity that you want. To
right,
me, that's the punishment. Like like I don't need if a kid isn't motivated by that, I'm not going to beat them to greatness because what you're going to get is you're a kid that moves a little bit better and they're going to hate the sport at some age. I promise you that. I
of
promise you
course
that.
you can beat
My
them
kid,
to greatness, Brian.
but my 30 kids that have made it to college,
Hmm.
like they all had the motor. They all and some of them needed to be taught how to respond to failure because when they make a mistake they get so frustrated with themselves no matter how gifted they were and how it's almost like they wanted it so bad that it distracted them from they wanted the results so bad that when they didn't get the results they get frustrated so then they're not thinking about their process, the process gets worse and the results get worse.
Yeah.
So the moment we could get those kids to take that competitive anger
Hmm.
and levitate it or shift it to like, okay, you're not happy with the result, so what are you going to do to make sure you get a different result next time? I think that expands
From
all. I don't understand why we would, especially for younger kids, like we
okay,
should be
back
that
to
much
them.
more
Okay.
like hey, I don't want to be the adversity. The skills, the adversity, and that's my opportunity to help the kid. I would argue that sometimes when coaches are running kids, that is the most teachable moment for the like. That's one of the most important times. That I probably talk. It's probably not a shocker from this podcast. I talk more at practice than a lot of coaches would like, and but it's very simple. If I see a kid make a mistake and I see them put their head down or they get, if I can tell that inside what they need to do isn't where their head's at,
Hmm.
I need to rewire that. I need to rewire that. And I watch kids that, after a while, they shank that pass that for weeks was just pissing them off. And now I see them mimic, like, oh, I had a drop step on that because it got behind me. I
Yeah.
can take a step back, right?
Where,
Like
yeah.
that's what. So for me, I just want, you know, I don't want my kids to fail. But it's again, when your gold medalists are losing 45% of the plays, I think part of what I want to teach them is you are going to do the wrong thing sometimes. The other team's going to exploit something sometimes. And the faster you can be in between the points, can I give you the tools to know why it happened, how to try to correct it, and go to the next
And
point.
that works too. Okay, as from a humorous perspective, I'm going to change my accent. I'm going to be a British guy advertising for Eastern European coaches. You need an Eastern European coach, all right? None of this stand in the corner and take time out. We're going to raise your kid in a traditional manner by making her learn Latin and beating her half to death in a single sex environment. Say it with me. You need an Eastern European coach. And I'm only joking because clearly there's not a whole lot of positive reinforcement on that side of the world, and yet they're the best players in the world. And the only reason why I don't full-throatedly support them, because I know from the juniors' perspectives, there are so many people that get left behind and they're mentally effed for like life. You just caused like a whole bunch of girls interrupted just to get this elite few, right? So look, I'm not an idiot, okay? I have symptoms of intelligence, all right? I can see that. And the second thing is, even the girls who make it to the top, the question is that sustainable? And we both know, just on a general human perspective, it's not. They're all gonna burn out, right? And you get this type of hardcore coaching that creates this social Darwinism, right? And there they have to coach the girls like the guys, because the only way that the girls have any form of camaraderie is through Anton Chekhovian's Suffering, the playwright, right? Because those are his plays, those were comedies, and and it works for them. But I don't. But the reason why I lean more towards you is because, one, it's not sustainable, and two, for what we're trying to do to grow the game of volleyball. You're a grow the game coach. How many times have you been in this podcast? Like 11 times. I love
I think this is it.
I love volleyball activists. You, my friend, are a volleyball activist. Aaron Wexler, who you just worked with, who's in the comments section and one of my contributors, he's a volleyball activist. Derek Zimmerman, when he was playing, he I wouldn't call him an activist, but you could definitely follow that guy's lead and like be inspired and learn some things from him. He's what we call a real one. So I wanted to land with that, but because we have to move, I wanted to take one question, and we the other subject of the NCAA thing is coming up.
Sure.
But I'm just having fun. I'm not. I mean, at this point, I want to table this because I don't want to have an argument about agreeing with you, because I
No,
don't,
it's not even an
I
argument,
don't, I
but
don't,
I
I
appreciate
don't wholeheartedly disagree with you.
no, but I appreciate the conversation. Really, like when I have conversations like this on forums, it's not even for us, Jason. It's more like
It's for
I want people that are watching to think and really just to think about it. You
Mm-hmm.
know what I mean? Like at the end of the day, like I said, I there are things I really appreciated some things that about Bobby Knight. The will to prepare to win is more important than the will to win, things like that.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I don't have to agree with some of his other practices and whatnot, but like
Oh,
it's
Bobby Knight.
I do not
Oof.
I do not
I said Bill
deny
Parcells,
his.
not Bobby Knight, but go ahead.
No, I said Bobby Knight
Okay,
because I always
cool.
use I'm a John Wooden guy, but I understand the success of Bobby Knight. And again, and I like you hit it on the head. And then we can go to the next thing that yeah, maybe it can help that 1% a little bit more. I guess for me, like my goal is to give kids the confidence, even my Division 1 caliber athletes. I want them to do it not because of I want them to do it because that's what it takes and I believe in them and that's what you got to do. You know what I mean? And if they're not getting the results they want, I want that to be like, hey, I want you to get that result too. And I'm not here to punish you for it, but like you got to do this if you want that result, right? And some take longer than others on it, but um I'm until it stops working and until I stop seeing even my high level athletes, when my high level athletes start coming back from college and telling me that I always ask them after 1 year, is there anything after your first year of college that you wish we would have spent more time on that I didn't prepare you for, things like that? Um, and I've yet to have someone, maybe they run a little different system. So it's been good to like as I've evolved. Now when I get a kid that's recruited, I start talking to the coach because I want to make sure that if they run a different system that I can start implementing that with that kid immediately so that they're not, blind to it or new to it the first time. Um, and a lot of our kids come back and train with us in their off season because they think they get more success with that type of training style. So, if other people found better results with other methods, that's great. I'm always trying to make sure I'm never wanting to be fixed in a way where I can't grow as a coach. And the moment that I start talking to my players coming back from college or just in general, and they're going places and it's not preparing them, then I'll change.
Right. I'm actually doing a 5 second clip telling everybody I'm on right now on Facebook so they can stop messaging me as if they don't know I'm on right now. I'm just saying on right now. Got a little 5 second video of my man Aaron Wexler. Let's I wanted to go to the there was a question way in the beginning of this because the comment section is lighting up.
The Aaron and Derek show.
Shout out to Brian. Yeah, these guys are. I mean, there's a lot of. You know what it does? Like when you respond in the comments, people stay, and then it makes people have the testicular fortitude to want to comment as well.
Could be
Um,
ovarian too.
it's true. Yeah, there's that. We got to pay attention. If you could design the perfect training day for an athlete balancing mind, body, and spirit, what would it look like? That's an
Ooh,
obvious
that's a fun
Aaron
one.
Wexler question.
Mind, body, spirit. So, uh, at least 2 hours of training physically, maybe more. Maybe even, two at the beginning. You know, could do film. So maybe an hour of drill work, hour of play. You can, maybe have a meal, go over the film, you know, break down some things, maybe ask the players based on that what they were most uncomfortable with, where they were confused, right? Um, maybe there's a situation where we can take film of successful athletes that are comparable enough that we can replicate and, okay, look how they're doing this in comparison to what we're showing, right? And then maybe doing a second session that specifically breaks that down. As someone that, we don't do 1 day clinics, but you know, the first 2 days we were really breaking down the whole philosophy of our offense, defense, mechanics. And then, okay, after the end of the second day, I thought we really needed to work on. We did a lot of work on it. So the third day, we did more play, and then based on the play, I saw that I thought our setting out of system as well as just our approach work and hitting with purpose needed work. So the next practice, we warmed up, we worked specifically on that, and then we played again. And now our setting hitting immediately got better and now our defense needs to play catch up because people are having bigger range as hitters, and the defense has to get used to that, right? So next practice, we're going to focus on that. I don't know if it would necessarily. I think one of the things that I if I could try to get coaches to expand on if they're not already doing this, I think a lot of coaches kind of have their system and they have their practices and their style, and it's like players sink or swim in it. And every group I coach, like if I did a 1 day with that mind, body, spirit, well, what are those players? Where are they at? Is their issues more fundamentals? And so we need to really focus on that. Are they players that have played for 10 to 15 years, but they have no formal training, so their spacing's broken? Or they've never even started with a blocker up, or even someone closer to the net just to protect the over? Um, I know the spacing and the mechanics of the sport, and every player comes with different strengths and weaknesses and educations. And so, connecting with my players, making sure they know I'm there to help them, trying to get them to understand that when we make mistakes, like, can we find the lesson for it? And then really modifying in real time to what they need, right? I used to be the type of coach that would write the practice plan out to the minute, and because that was something that John Wooden he was very meticulous with his practice plan. So I wanted to do even where the basketball cart was, so that there was less time in transition. I respected that, and then what I kind of found was my gut was telling me in the situation, okay, this is what I wanted to do today, but my eyes and what the kids are actually doing, I need to blow that practice plan up because this is what we need, right? So I've always tried to really, I hate to, I know you always get disappointed when I don't answer a question directly, but like, what a perfect practice in that situation would be, can I connect to what these players, if I was going to coach against them, what are their biggest weaknesses, and can I make a day to raise the basement for them, and not even that we're necessarily going to fix everything, but can I give them enough of an understanding of why things break down and how to do it differently? So when they go to play on their own, like we've given them the tools so that when they get put in that situation again, where before our clinic, maybe they were just like, oh, I'm doing it again. This isn't good. I'm struggling with this. I hate this. Like, okay, I know that these are the tools that if I implement this, it gives me a better chance of success.
Absolutely, and I actually like the more the elaborative form of the answer because the question was asked by someone that probably desperately wants you to elaborate on that. And again, this is this is the Option Podcast, but this is probably going to attract a lot of attention of people who are coaching juniors. Attract the attention of people who are looking for a conflicting forces debate that we engaged in. Of course, there are going to be some holier than thou people that are going to probably make a podcast on why we're wrong. And you know what I'm saying? It's going to be all stripes of variety. So I appreciate the length of your answer. And I like Aaron also said we should make more time for visualization, meditation, gratitude sessions, as well as self-evaluation for both players and coaches. I'd like to answer that one. I do visualization drills. I teach the kids how to do that before practice starts. So when they come 10 minutes early or whatever, the net's set up, they're actually kind of like, they all sit like back to back, or sometimes they all lay on the floor where like all of their heads are like closer to the circle and their feet are outwards. And I actually taught them visualization drills because to me, if you know what something looks like, then too, you can do it, right? It's like vision, visualization, right? Because on the court, people move all the time, but like certain spots stay the same. They don't move. So I think that's important from the mental to the physical. Lastly, and I'll let you take over because I'm sure you have something to add to this. Self-evaluation is what I do the last 5 minutes of practice, and I do it in pairs. Sometimes I do it in pairs so everyone can hear it. Like partners, I'm like, hey, what's one thing you thought she did well? I'm like, oh my God, her platform was really nice and this and that. And then the same person that she was talking about, I go to that other player and I'm like, what's one thing you want to do better the next practice? She's like, you know what? Not facing my angle. And I'm like, how do you want to do that? So now what you're doing is you're creating kids that are out of control in a good way. Because me saying, how do you want to do that? I'm not telling her. And if she doesn't know how, then I'm like, hey, okay, you do this. Try
Then
that.
we get to
And
coach.
and this is why coaches like you and coaches like me in the beginning of this podcast, I only want to go where I'm wanted, right? I took a year off from coaching, and the only time I did coach, my kid took ninth at the MBO. So, and Aaron, I like that because, and giving you the mic, of course, I like that you said that because there's always time for that. And if you don't, it doesn't really hurt to make time for that. You're talking like 5 minutes before, 5 minutes after. Coach?
Yeah, and I'll tell you, I think some
Mm.
coaches would cringe at you know, we practice at 6:30, but if not everyone's there, like I'm not punishing because I got kids. Again, I don't think the other thing. I don't want to get on too much of a soapbox. This is way more structured. Like kids' lives and their logistics is way more busy than when we were kids, and I'll die on that hill.
Right.
So I'm not going to punish the kid that didn't even drive themselves because their parents were 5 minutes late because they're trucking one kid to another practice and then trying to get them to my practice.
Hmm.
I want to get the most out of the time, and if they miss, that's kind of their loss, right? I don't want to make
Right.
them feel bad when they're already doing that. Um, we definitely like I give them a lot of I try to I'm the 40-year-old male coach, so like at water breaks I try to give them a little more time to themselves. Something that I'm working on as we speak is like beginning of the season, so you have your two groups that know each other really well, so next week we're going to start forcing them together a little bit more in those breaks, but like I give them time to talk about that. Had a really nice icebreaker at the beginning of practice the first day where I was like, tell something about yourself off the court. And, one kid played video games, boom, four other five kids do that. Kids that one kid baked, one kid liked certain shows, so, um, you know, and then really for the gratitude, I really try to practice for 2 hours. I'm gonna call you up, not call you out. But if you're struggling with something and you do it better, or you even give me the effort that you were feeling unsafe to give her initially, like, man, am I going to make you know that that's validated?
That's
I
a
don't care what
win,
that ball.
man. Isn't that a
You know what?
win?
Because I know, I'm a nature guy, so I don't like the analogy, but like mastering skills in this sport is like chopping a thick oak
Right.
with not the best axe, right? And the idea that for some of our kids they've chopped like 10 or 20 times, like I won't want that to be like, oh, it didn't fall down. Like, no. But you know what? Every time you strike, hopefully you're learning about a more effective way to hit. You're if we're not being particular on how we're adjusting from our mistakes, then our chops are not going to have as much impact. You know,
Hmm.
some people practice in a manner where you think the axe is backwards, if you catch my drift.
I think,
Um,
yeah, coach, I think a lot of people can appreciate the value of what you're talking about in the sense that in a game, like some of the things that turn around the games are plays that you lost, right? Like you played for Newberry, right? You're going against NJIT or Stevens, right? And they're a taller team. You're undersized, and you're trying to touch control block. You get like three digs in a row, and eventually lose the volley. You know what happens? Your team
start
won.
realizing
They
you can
lost
do it
that
though.
point, right? But they're like, you can't kill me, right? You can't hurt me. You can, right? Someone that tries to bring a ball back and dives into like their team, and their team catches them and they miss the dig. Those are things, especially for girls volleyball, that brings everybody together. You know why? Because there's this general investment that they care about enough about each other to do that. So even, like we only remember the good players, right? Sometimes 19 up, someone might do something that they never trained for, and this is why I think like tough love helps too, because most of the times you win a game by two. They've done something when the game was tied. that I didn't learn that in practice. It's so beautiful. Our game, dude, our game is so beautiful. Our game is so beautiful. Okay, let's get into. I want to talk briefly, and it's weird because we're not going to give both of them value time. I want to talk about the NCAA last year making double hit legal. So for those of you catching up to the indoor scene, double hit contact is legal. However, double contact going over on two or three or whatever is not legal, and also carry or lift is still illegal. So these are still like unprotected. I did not like it because they said we had a rigorous debate about it, but it was really 40 people in a room deciding the fate on how hundreds of thousands of people are gonna play volleyball, right? Decided by like
Hmm.
ridiculous. But my question to you is, because I in my comment section, it's like, dude, coaches are not going to teach kids how to double. They're going to teach kids to set the same way. It's not going to change the technique. And my question to you is, as a true savage and a true all year round club coach, um, does college rule changes like that shape the way you train your kids technically?
Well, I mean, on the beach side, like we're seeing a huge shift in how like what makes a set clean or not, right? And what I can tell you at this summer, um, part of my perspective on it is I think we've struggled. We've built this huge player base over the last 2 decades, and we haven't put the money back into the education. So the problem is if we had kept the rules the same and we were playing by those standards, that even our talented players, you don't want the game to be determined by who gets the whistle called on them first, right?
Right.
Like if we played by pure doubles rules, going to juniors tournaments in our area, most plays would end with an illegal contact.
Huh.
And something that I'm working through is going to tournaments in our area and watching as kids are setting the first serve, setting the ball over the net not cleanly, couple open hand tips, and the refs don't know how to call it, and my players are looking at me like that shouldn't be legal. So one of the things that we still, you know, I've you brought up Scott Davenport earlier, and I remember listening to a podcast. I think he was talking with John Mayer, and he was pleading with the college player coaches like our players are coming to the USA pipeline and they cannot play in a manner that's successful for FIVB because they don't have the hands aren't there, right? Um, so I want to make sure that we train our kids with the mind to put them in a position that they're going to go on to play in college or at a place where the standards may be more strict, that we've given them the ability to do so. And I also want, if they go to a tournament where other teams are not playing that tight and the refs are not calling it, tough life lesson for these kids is sometimes it's not fair. And you have two roads to go down. You can sit there and complain about the hands and the open, and the things that are happening, or you can say, okay, well, if this is not going to get called, what am I going to do about it? You know what I mean? So it hasn't like I definitely when we're scrimmaging, I never end a play on an illegal play. What I'll say is play it. Let's keep playing,
Yes.
and then as soon as the play is over, we're going to talk about
Yep.
what happened and what to do next time,
Yep.
right? And if the same kid continue, like, okay, you're not, you're almost willfully like, I'm going to keep setting the ball that's behind me versus drop stepping. By the third time, I'm going to have to start enforcing it, right? Um, but no, it hasn't really. I mean, I'm going to change. What it has changed is like now that people are going over on two a lot more. Obviously just making our players aware of what they may be experiencing from their opponents and making sure that they're prepared to understand the counters. Um,
Yep.
so it's not so much the rules as much as how the strategy of their opponents are changing and making sure that we know what to do to make sure that that stops working.
Nice. I like that. Well thought out. And you know what? I'm gonna give you the mic drop on that. I think you said it all. I got, and once again, I got Eminem from 8 Mile. This guy said everything I was about to say. Remember that? This guy I know MC. I know everything he's about to say against me. I just he freaking Midwestern. I got Eminem'd. I got Eminem'd. Um, so let's have a little bit of fun. Um, wow, recognizing life events that spark the need for change. That's not for us. Maybe I don't know what the
Oh,
hell. What?
where's your question? I'm interested in it.
I don't know what
A-
the. I mean, that was the question. I don't know what they're talking about. But
Is it Aaron?
no, no, this is
Or
someone
what
else.
comments are you? What
No, I
say
got,
that
I
out
got,
loud
I
again?
got comments, but I also got DMs that people that
What
knew you
what
were coming on.
say that line again?
Recognizing life events that spark the need for change.
That's a great one. That's a great one. I'd love to talk
Let's
about that.
do it.
So
Take the
so
wheel, Jesus.
we're coaching people, not just players, right?
Hmm.
And I have kids whose financial situation can affect what they're doing and why they're doing it. I have kids who have lost parents, have parents that are sick. They've had health issues, right? We have kids that find a passion for something that's going to inevitably have a big impact on their career and their standard of living, and to pursue that correctly, um, where volleyball fits in the big scheme of things should change. I, I I think one of the things that really led me to beach was the feeling that if I went to indoor and you have to create teams where you do need people's commitments to be equal for a team to be able to pursue what they want to pursue, I didn't feel that I could give space for that. And, I can't relate, and it's 2025. We don't need to get to it. There's a lot of adults that are messed up right now, and I have my own mental health battles, right? And I
And I
can't
think that's what they're
imagine
talking about. They're not talking
I
about
can't I can't
juniors.
imagine I can't imagine being a kid with social media and the things that are coming across their timeline and the things that they're dealing with and how much comparison there is, and it's overwhelming. And so I think it's really important for me to make sure that as much as I'm coaching the kids to be really good players and I want them to have ownership of their goals, as a mentor to them as a human being, am I getting to know the full spectrum of who they are as a person and what their goals are and what their drive is, and making sure that volleyball in the way that we're pursuing it fits that correctly, right? Um,
Hmm.
There was a conversation on Volleyball Moms that was really interesting yesterday, where a parent was like, I overheard a parent say that, they don't care, their kid isn't going to go to school for a degree, they just want to play volleyball in college, right? And they were asking, like, do other parents think this is healthy? And I was shocked by how many people commented and were like, yeah, that's completely like I could see that how that's the case. And I'm like, okay, well, here's some, and this is why I came back with, okay, here's some data. Of all the students, athlete or not, that enroll in a 4-year school, only 41% have a degree 4 years later, right? An ever extra year of college costs tens of thousands of dollars more. Um, 94% of kids that make their high school team, not including cut kids, will not play in college, right? And I have one client, because I do college guidance, and they had a loan that was 17%. Okay. So
Good Lord.
I I just think that, there's all these recruiting agencies that can like make a profile and they have their database, so they can get it to a lot of coaches. But is that, and you can even, like, you ask the right questions, like what's your field of study, school size, division you want to play, geographic location. But are you really getting to know the kid? Like, okay, you say you want to do this. Why do you want to do this, right? Like, you say you just want to play in college. Well, I like to give them three scenarios to think about. Like, you be, a starter on a team. Maybe it's a rebuild program, full new team and new coach, and you might start, but you may never win more than 10 games in the season. Program you might be able to work your way to a starter as a junior, senior, by junior year, 500 level team. Really, a healthy goal would be to make your conference tournament and maybe make a push to try to make the NCAA tournament. Or maybe scenario three, it's a team that's very successful and you could be on it, but you may never see the court, right? And getting kids to think about what they would be happy with, right? Getting kids, hey, if you're a nursing major, there are volleyball programs that, what the academic track is, you cannot be on the team while playing the sport, right? Like Newberry, we were a huge culinary school, and we had a kid that came to our school to play volleyball, and then once he got his class schedule, 12-hour mods to work on stuff, he couldn't participate on the team anymore, right? So
It's the
I
same
just
thing with
think that,
theater. Yeah. But sorry.
so I believe it's one size fits one, and my job as a mentor to my kids, as much as a volleyball coach, is to make sure that I'm connecting as much as they're willing to let me connect on the full spectrum of what they're trying to accomplish as players and people, and to make sure that I'm being honest with them as someone that has coached Division 1, Division 3 JUCO, have kids that have gone on to not play in college but have achieved incredible things off the court. Like, are we being compatible with the life that's going to make you happy, right? We have kids that go on to play club at a high school that they couldn't possibly play on the NCAA team, but they're good enough and they want the structure and they want to play, and they play club. We have kids that play intramurals. It's a way for them to socialize. We have some kids that literally go to a school because it's a great academic fit and it's a good they get good merit aid there. It's a good culture for them, and they have an adult community in the area, and we help them network so that they can play adult ball, so they can stay in the sport while pursuing the things that college are supposed to actually achieve, which is a degree that doesn't make you, drown in debt. It's to give you a better career opportunity. And I think we've kind of lost some of that, especially with the recruiting agencies. And so, to whoever asked that, yeah, I think it's important to really know what changes happen. And so if someone has some things where something's new in my life and it changes my priorities, I take it as something that I want to make sure that I've created a program that doesn't say, well, if you want to play volleyball, you have to literally sacrifice part of what, who you are. Again, play college, yeah, you're going to need to make sacrifices. But for the 94%, you know, 94% of kids we should be treating as if volleyball is supplementary to their life, not the number one priority. Because
Right.
once they leave us, that's probably going to happen.
And recognizing the difference between that being your priority, right? Like if you're in a men's team that only has like 4.5 scholarships and they gave you a chunk of a big slice of that pie, maybe it's a higher priority, right? Because that's a forced priority on you. And I love that you said that, because sometimes it's not one event, life event, that is this inciting incident. that causes this spark for change. It can be a compilation of things, right? I before Marymount Manhattan, I went to Hunter College, right? How many semesters do you think I was there for?
I mean,
Just the
I was,
one.
yep,
The
I had two in my
NCAA
first college.
the just the one. I wanted to play NCAA volleyball. I wasn't interested in college. I just got out of the military, and and I knew that I had a contract to go back to Europe. So there was a bunch of crazy Haitian players that were playing that year, and not bad. D3 school that got invited to EIVA, made the quarterfinals. Not so, but I think what sparked my need for change is that I knew everything that I was doing, if it stayed the same, I was going to ruin myself mentally. I was going to ruin myself physically. At that time, I was 265 pounds, right? And from there, there's no reversal. This usually downhill from there. Think about me as 265. That's a wall, right? Um, so there was that. There was also a marriage and divorce that just kind of like put everything this ultimate reversal. Went back to school full time. Actually gave up volleyball for 4 years, except for summer. I played grass court with my guy Flacco, and one of my best friends, who was an ex girlfriend, was like, you got to give up volleyball, right? And she's like, you're working in a cardiology practice 9 to 5. You're in an acting major that requires so much rehearsal time with you and your partner, outside of school. I don't want to delve on it too much, but I'll give you an example. Like for a 3 credit acting one course, if you're assigned a scene, you have to do a research paper on the playwright. You have to do a script analysis on the play. You have to do a textual study and like break every freaking line down to fragments of what's the operative word, what's contrast emphasis, what's a climatic series, and you have to do 3 hours with your partner. This is for a 3 credit 3 hour course, right? So she was like, you got to give up volleyball, right? So, but recently, um, the life event was the Pottstown Rumble and something that happened in Hermosa Beach Open last year that made me feel so unappreciated that I'm like, I'm not doing this anymore. I just don't want to do this anymore. And it created this reversal because I had an opposite year this year than what I had last year, even though I did all the same type of work. But this year was special because, like I said in the beginning of this podcast, this is for adult players. If you reach the point where you took everything as far as it can go, the value of only going where you're wanted is a victory. And stop wasting time getting caught up in the validation game, because at the end of the day, you will become what you despise. Like even if you get what you want, you feel so disgusted with yourself. Do you even want what you got? And it's weird. I'm like 55, right? And I still struggle with that. And I'm in what you would call the catbird seat as far as what I want to do in my life, right? Where I got guests like you coming on the most viewed podcast in beach volleyball, right? This is great. So, and even I still struggle with that. So I know young adults, I know people who are in their midlife crisis. This is not really for juniors because you already attacked the juniors perspective. Mm-hmm. I'm only speaking in terms of getting what you want and wanting what you get.
Ooh, you want to talk? You use the term midlife crisis, and I thought about this a couple months ago. I've never talked about.
Are you
this,
like one of these 40-year-olds that look like you're 20? Are you like over 40?
I'm 40.
That's wild.
Don't drink, man.
Yeah.
Stay off the alcohol.
And
look
at me. Look at me. I thought I had a good night's sleep. I look like the boogeyman slapped me around.
put your sunscreen on. You know what I mean? So I'm a very pale beach player. Let's talk. The term midlife crisis was pretty common when I was a kid. Mm-hmm. And as I get to 40 and I talk with the people in my closest circle that are of similar age, is it that people have a crisis in the middle of their life? Or is it that when we're younger, there's like this box that you're told, like, this is acceptable, this is good, this is right. And then you get to your 20s. I think 20s is kind of about finding yourself. 30s, you start, maybe, okay, now I'm thinking about kind of bigger picture stuff, right? And then at 40, it's like, I do have ownership of exactly, like, it doesn't matter what other people said. Like, I think everyone at some point gets to the point in their life where it's like, I know what makes me happy. I know what I subscribe to for my life, and what I was told to do or what I had been thinking I was supposed to do doesn't align with that. I think it's not so much a crisis as much as a point of reflection and adaptation. And because, 20, 30, 40 years ago, it was very linear, like you do this, and if you're not on that track, then, something wrong with you. Well, now there with the internet, and there's so many more people that have more ownership of it's almost like too many options of what they want to do, right? But I don't subscribe to midlife crisis when I think just a lot of times people get to a point in their life where in a healthy manner, it's like they reflect and say, okay, do maybe there's shifts in my life that can make it a little more compatible with what I feel would both be making me happy as well as better for the greater good. So, um, yeah, I know it doesn't really go anywhere specific from there, but I try when I have friends that are starting to make those changes and they kind of say it in a negative way. I think it would be more unhealthy. I feel for the people that get stuck in a box that they don't subscribe to and they never have the confidence to step outside of it. And those are the people on their deathbed that I hope don't, but I think are more likely to wonder what they could have done differently, right? So I think it's always good when people can be honest with themselves, as discomforting as it can be, and it's very uncomfortable to say I need to make a change. So
Right. And for me, no, 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 I'm leaving that at that. Another thing, goals turns into routine. I like that one. I'd suggest anyone that want goals to turn into their routine, they should read Chop Wood, Carry Water. It's about embracing the process of what some people call a labor, but when a labor becomes just a normal day and you're just going through it and you embrace the value of how well you do this task. It's still a task, but it's also something more significant because it's work, but it's work, but it doesn't feel like it. Like there are some days we're coaching volleyball and we're putting in the work, but it doesn't feel like it because we're loving it and we're embracing that. So, Chop Wood Carry Water is this guy that wants to be like some kind of like samurai warrior, but they're making him do something every morning like chop wood and this and that. But and to a point where he just embraced the process. So, but that's what I said before, whether it's through growth mindset or positive reinforcement or tough love, the net result is become the fire or be consumed by it. There's always that coming to Jesus moment that happens some point in your life on and off the court. So that's all I wanted to say about that.
nice.
I have a lightning round for you, but it's not like lightning round questions. I'm going to give you 60 seconds to talk about
Yeah, we've done this
what's one
before.
of your favorite sports movies and why? So I give you 60 seconds, my friend. What's as far as sports movies that inspire you or your favorite movie and why?
Hmm.
Or maybe just a 10-second synopsis of what the movie's about. Go.
Uh, The Fighter, one of my favorite ones. Loved
Who's that? Who's in it?
Mark
Wahlberg?
Wahlberg, Christian Bale.
Right.
Um, really, I, I like movies that kind of talk about the full spectrum of like, it's not all, sunshine and rainbows, and it's a true story. It's a very sad moment. Like I always think about that moment where, well, I don't want to ruin it for some people, but like basically the older brother looked at the younger brother and was like, did you look up to me? And he was like, yeah, you did this, like you were the greatest. And the guy starts walking. He's like, I was, because he's like coming to terms with like life change and whatnot. So The Fighter, I I was supposed to see it with the girl, and I forgot that I was supposed to see my parents that day to go to see a movie, and the only good movie was The Fighter, and it was so freaking good, and I wanted the night to go well on the to see the movie that I didn't tell her I saw it, so I saw it twice in the same day.
There you go.
So Katie, if you're watching this, there's something you didn't know.
There you go. Katie doesn't know
Yeah. So
that
how about?
Brian and me go to the movies every
Oh, really? It
Sunday.
was just like she probably been like, you already saw this today, and you want to see it again, and it really at the time it was like, well, it was such a good movie, and I wanted the night to go well, so I wanted to see it again. So it's a great movie
Katie
too.
doesn't know. It doesn't know.
So how about you? What's your favorite sports movie?
All right, so I was actually going to say remember the Titans, but you inspired me because I have so many of them that I can be. You asked me the same question tomorrow. It's going to be a different movie. Could be any given Sunday. And originally it was Remember the Titans, but I'm going to go with Rocky Two. Rocky Two. Sylvester Stallone,
Ooh.
who wrote and directed Rocky Part One, insisted that he was in it. Almost never even happened, but he planted both feet, and then finally they gave in, and as a result, it won Best Picture, and it launched his career to do other stuff, good stuff and bad stuff. Rambo, The Assassins, but one of the through lines about Rocky Two was it was supposed to be a rematch against Apollo, and he immediately and he. The family said absolutely not. There's not going to be a rematch. In fact, at the end of Rocky One, they said they didn't want one, and Apollo basically just called this guy out in public on TV. The Italian Scallion, is it Stallion? What is his name? So and you can call me collect Rock. You're a chump, you're a coward. So all this stuff. So his wife didn't want him to do it, and I got 10 seconds. It's going to be great. And the through line was, "Yo, Adrian, I never asked you to stop being a lady, so please." Don't ask me to stop being a man. And I really like that because in this world where everyone's trying to make everyone as unisex as possible, there has to be a general respect on what men think, what makes us men, right? Because we don't go into a woman's space and say, this is how you should be a woman, right? When we have a daughter, we don't raise our daughters we don't ask men to take the vanguard in raising our daughters on how to be women, right? So sometimes, and
You think that's
ask
evolving?
no, but it's evolving because today that's considered sexist, and
Oh,
even
man,
if
do
it
you?
is, and
How much
even
time
if
do we have, man? Because
no,
I've
but
got
let's
like I'm not
hold on
pushing.
a
I'm
second.
not.
Even if it is considered sexist, so what? Who cares, right? Like, I mean, sexist by definition is the inherent belief that one is superior or inferior based on one's sex. So I don't think it's sexist because it didn't come from a place of superiority or inferiority to women, just a differentiation from what makes a man, what we think makes a man and makes a woman. No one's saying with Rocky's saying he's better. Or worse, he's just different. I never asked you to stop being a lady. Don't ask me to stop being a man. Sorry, go ahead.
Nah, I'm gonna back off of this one.
Ah!
Because and I was gonna preface it like I'm a volleyball coach. I do not
His
have
chick
this.
controls his life. No, I'm kidding. Listen,
Well,
who am
all
I
right.
kidding? Mine
Oh, I don't
does.
want to go. All
Mine
right.
does. I'm messing, but go
Here's
ahead.
here's what I'm. This is I'm gonna throw this at you, and and it's just something that I think about because I'm
Go ahead.
my mind. I look for things that okay. So let's talk about drive and just leave it at that.
Right.
So males have a drive in their late teens, early 20s, right? Females have a higher drive in their 40s, right? And that has been something that has been labeled as like scientific. And I look at, when you're, oh yeah,
Go
you're getting
ahead.
what you want on this. And I look at it and I say, okay, well, as a kid, when you're a male, what you're taught by your society that is not scientific, but it's taught is like your body count or how many people you sleep with, right? And for women, it's a place of shame and like you're supposed to protect this and you're not supposed to do this, right? So I'm just, as a volleyball coach that doesn't know anything about, but if I was to go into the science, you know, I would be curious, well, how much of that data is influenced by how we raise our males and females? Is that because, there's stats that have a correlation with that, but there are people in both genders that break that. And I sometimes think maybe there's more nurture than nature.
Hmm.
I look at how my parents were taught and how my grandparents were taught and how Kristen and I, with the internet, what we've been able to learn that they didn't have access to. And I can't help but wonder if a lot of gender roles are more so because we're a product of our environment at a
There's
very
that.
large scale, and I say that as, someone that I'm grateful that Kristen is able to pursue art the way she wants, and I think about my grandma, and I wish she would have been able to. I wonder if she was born into this time, would she have had 5 kids, or would she be doing what Kristen's doing, right?
Right.
My one grandma, I know she wanted to be a nurse, but she's got 6 kids, right? Um, so all I'll say on that is like I am not smart enough to combat what you said there, but
Smart
I
enough.
also have a curiosity, and I think I don't want to be labeled as I should be something or not be something because of what my gender is, and I wouldn't want any of my female athletes I coach, you know what I mean, to
Right.
feel that way.
But you also
So,
listen. You also have to appreciate in Rocky too. There was a mutual support system, right? Because when he made a decision to fight Apollo, he couldn't. He didn't train well. He trained, as Mickey said, you're training like a bum, because he knew that his wife didn't approve of it, right?
mhm.
But when she had almost like a near miscarriage or whatever, she was pregnant and wound up in the hospital. When she left, he's like, okay, I'm not going to fight this guy if we don't want to. If it's going to cause all this stress in our life. And
Mhm.
she told him, come here for a second. She says, win. And when she said win,
Mhm.
right? So of course it was about letting a man be a man, but at the same time there was this interconnected support system
Mhm.
that he couldn't be the man he was without the support of his significant other. So it
And it's
took
a
it
great
took the
line.
general a stereotype and elevated it into this mutual support system. It
Yeah,
was a
but like
fantastic movie.
I mean, you're an MMA guy, man. I mean,
Yeah.
would do you think there's a situation where there could be a female MMA fighter with a husband that doesn't fight that would have the exact same concerns for the female fighter and the risk that comes with it?
Um.
That
Yeah. Well.
so what? So you know what I'm saying? So like, is it even so much? I don't ask you to be not be a lady. You can't ask me to not be a man. Or is what he's really saying there,
Mhm.
right? Is I don't stop you from being exactly who you are, and
Right.
I need you to. This is part of who I am,
Right.
right? It doesn't even have to be a gender thing.
No.
Um,
No, but
and I get
clearly it's not, because he couldn't do the training without
because I
the
gotta be
cross
telling you,
support.
if Kristen went into MMA,
Hmm.
I'd probably have my own
But you
concerns
know
about
what?
that
Like Holly
necessarily.
Holm, her husband doesn't, whatever. And if Rhonda was calling her out, she there's something about a woman to be like, she's an idiot. I'm not. No, I don't care about her. Where like a guy is like, you're gone too far, right? At some point you put I guess if you push any human being, I know what you're saying. Yeah.
That's what I'm saying is like we're just on the cusp of being that first generation that even gives our society an opportunity for people to not be put in respective boxes. Like, these kids I'm coaching, like you truly it's overwhelming, I think, but like the world's yours. My 50 years ago, you would have had to have been a home, raising the home and having the kids. 100 years ago, I'd be on my parents' farm. I would have been born to work the farm. Like we're not that far removed from that.
No.
And I think I say it like not a judgment. Like I'm excited that it's not a knock on those generations. They just didn't. We're 19 years removed from long distance calls. You know, so
And
like
the
I just
internet.
think
Yeah.
people were in their own respective bubbles for so long, and yeah, I think it's really cool that you know I want kids to not feel like, well, if I'm this gender or that gender, like there's what lights your soul on fire. I don't care who you are, and
Yeah.
like, can I give you tools to help you learn how to, that's what we're doing with volleyball. We're hitting a leather ball over a net. I want to teach kids when they're not where they want to be how to pursue that.
Right.
And you hope that they take that, especially if they're the 5'5" kid with a size 12 shoe that loves volleyball. I hope that they have a belief in themselves and that they know they've got that fire here and they're willing to put the work in. That no one would tell them, well, you can't do that because you're not as tall as your bigger, faster, stronger peer. And shout out to Bob Vilsaway at Harper College for undoing the damage of the adults that made me feel that way. I almost missed out. You and I wouldn't know each other if I never undid that stigma that was put on me. So, anyways,
Yeah.
I know we got way off volleyball stuff on
I
here.
don't
I
know,
got,
but
I got,
that's where we're gonna finish. So And it started with favorite movies, right? Because movies just are sports and the human psyche, and men and women are
Doesn't take much
connected.
for you and I to,
Yeah,
make our own rails.
and that's the genius of the podcast. Otherwise, what would we be, right? They say, come on, that's what makes us different from everybody else. Let's plug in your website before we get out of here.
Sure.
Um,
Progressionvolleyball.com. If you're in the Chicagoland area, we have two indoor beach volleyball courts. I do juniors training, 11 to 18U, for anyone that has not found a good fit for their out of school training. I consider us a pretty healthy alternative. We give everyone the ones team treatment. We're the one game in town. We can look you in the eye without knowing the level of your kid and guarantee the quality of instruction. Flexible with scheduling. So again, our program works around your life versus the other way around. Um, College guidance is something I'm starting to pick back up on. So if you have a kid, whether they're going to play college or not, I worked in missions. I coached Division 1, Division 3 JUCO. I transferred twice. I do. It's not so much helping kids, fluff their application to get into schools. It's really getting to know the kids and what do they know or what do they not know about what they want to do after college, and knowing their financial situation and the things that are important to them, finding the best fit at the best price, because your dream school should build your dream life. So yeah, and shameless plug for any of my art people. Kristen held art. My better half does, a lot of stationery, calendars, things of that
Actually, I'm
nature.
curious. If I put both thumbs up, does something happen in the back? Oh, look at that! Come on, you don't see it, but there's like
No,
fire. It's like fireworks. Do you see it? The fireworks? No, you don't
nope.
see. You don't see it on your end. Let me do it again. I didn't know YouTube would do that for me. Oh,
All right, I see it on the second
all
screen
right,
now.
all right, guys. Derek Zimmerman, great podcast. Keep growing the game. Love y'all. Appreciate this convo. All right, guys. So Bryan McDermand might love you guys, but I don't love you guys. In fact, I can't stand any of you guys. In fact, we're out of here. So for all of you at home, for all of you on your droids, if that still exists, for all of you on your desktop who runs the world, old school people, old school, this is Bryan McDermand. I am Jason DeBias. This is the Option Podcast. We're going to hit my music. Stay with me. But for now, we are out of here. Come check out the Option Podcast on OptionVB.com. It's also available on iTunes and Spotify and on YouTube under the NY Varsity Sports handle. You're going to love what you hear.